It was the death of me having to release that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It was the death of me.
Yeah.
Because if I love you, I love you.
Yeah.
And it's nothing I won't do for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I also think that once you start loving you again, because something happened along the way.
There you go.
That you would accept that toxicity in your life, right? But the higher you go, most of the time the trash gonna take out itself. You know, Judas, you don't never have to hang, he gonna hang himself. I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth.
It's the truth.
Because every time you go higher, there's always anytime you get elevated, there's always a Judas. You can always expect a Judas at the table. What's the scripture say? Thou prepares a table. If you have enemies, that's an automatic indication that there's a table set.
I love that.
God has set a table for you. If you got enemies, if you don't got no enemies, you ain't got no table.
Yeah, you ain't doing enough. Work harder.
Yeah, but if you got enemies, that means a table has been set.
I love that.
Holding me.
Welcome. My name is Ari Squires. Welcome to the Release the Chains podcast, where we have real, raw, and revolutionary discussions, helping people just like you release your mental, emotional, financial, and generational chains. Today, I am super excited to have someone that I'm meeting in person for the very first time, Dr. Jessica Mosley. Dr. Jessica Mosley is a talented and dedicated media professional who happens to have more than a decade plus of experience helping organizations communicate more effectively. She has developed strategic communication plans, garnered extensive media coverage, produced marketing materials, coordinated special events, and a host of other communicative activities. She is regularly invited to speak to high-achieving men and women and industry leaders on a variety of topics, including the business benefits of social networking, how to effectively run a successful business, and strategic management of communication activities. Her background as a VP in banking, extensive knowledge in healthcare and municipal environments brings a well-rounded perspective to her work with her public relations clients. Her clients have been featured in multiple media affiliates such as Huffington Post, Sheen Magazine, Forbes, Essence, Black Enterprise, Ebony.com, Beautifully Said, Rolling Out Magazine, Good Day Charlotte, MSNBC, Fox, People, Yahoo Finance, just to name a few. That's amazing. She is also steward owner of Deborah's Place for battered women, children, and nonviolent ex-offenders. Dr. Jessica is the host of the Vantage Point Christian Talk Show on WHMB 40 and the host of the J. Mosley Radio Show and Radio 1's gospel station, 1310 The Light. Girl, how are you doing all of this? And I know this is not even all of it. Please tell the people, how do you, as a woman, doing all of this amazing stuff, how are you managing it?
I always start my day with prayer and ask God to help me be a good steward of my time. Just like you steward money, you have to steward your time.
Yes. Oh, I love that. So is it you wake up every day in prayer and then you get to work? Do you set some intentions for the day? Do you strategize for the day? You know, because there's a lot of women, a lot of people listening who are managing multiple businesses, are wanting to manage multiple businesses, manage multiple activities, and they're having a difficult time, right? So
I used to.
Yeah.
Until I realized that I'm messing up my money by not being a good steward of my time.
I love that.
I used to do Mary Kay, and in her book, she talks about how every night before she go to bed, she write down the 6 most important things that she has to do for the next day. And if it's not on that list, she doesn't worry about it.
I love it.
And I was like, one day I'm going to adopt that. And I finally did. So if it's not on my list, it don't happen.
Wow. So being that you do so many things, mainly let's talk about the public relations side of your business. managing clients and, you know,
high-end clients.
Yeah, high-end clients, right? High-end clients. You know, what is that process like? Mainly, really, what I want to know is how'd you get here?
And that's what I'm so glad you asked that question, because people need to realize that Rome was not built in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I did not just become Dr. Jessica Mosley, right?
Yes, right.
I didn't even realize I was doing PR when I first started off doing it. I had a business coach, Nikki Wood. She used to be the senior producer for the Time during the morning show.
Nice.
And she was my coach, and she was like, "You do realize you're doing PR?" And I'm like, "What's that?" You know, she's like, "Well, you're helping people get on shows." But I had started had a radio show, and I had started establishing relationships with people in media.
Mm-hmm.
So I met people from Steve Harvey, I met people from Tom Joyner, I met people from BET and Black Enterprise. So I was able to call them and say, "Hey, I got a client I think would be good." You know, they said, "Well, just send me their information," because I developed the relationships. People, 95% of my business comes from developed relationships. If you can cultivate a relationship, you can get you some money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll never be broke. I have a story. Teenage mother, had my son, 17 years old. It was actually spring break of my senior year. My son's father was actually murdered 8 days out. He was murdered on spring break that year as well, Easter of 98. So now y'all know how old I am. But I had a family and a village that surrounded me so that I could go to college, so that I could continue on, right? But I was a good girl gone bad. So I started dealing with drug dealers. My son's father was in the streets too, and I didn't have a real positive male influence in the house. So I was looking for love in all the wrong places. It cost me dearly. When I came home from school out of Nebraska, I ended up coming back to Gary, Indiana, Maryville, Indiana, and I got in another toxic relationship. That relationship almost cost me my life, because I left him when I was 7 months pregnant with my now 16-year-old daughter. So that's about 16 years ago. And that's how I ended up, because he used to fight me. It didn't start off like that. You know how it always starts off like, "Where you going?" Or they start counting your footsteps, and you may think that you got him sprung, but really he's training you. I was being trained silently and didn't know it. "Where you at?" "Oh, okay, how long you gonna be?" So he knew how long it took for me to get to work, to our place, everything. Nevertheless, the last time he stomped me, and I was pregnant with my daughter, I was like, "I'm done." I literally left with my 7-year-old son, and I was 7 months pregnant, and I got on the Greyhound and went to Indianapolis, Indiana, and got into a shelter. The police took me to a shelter because I had a shut black eye. And I stayed at the Julian Center, which is like, one day I'm going to tell you my full circle moment, because now the TV station that I'm on is right across the street from the battered women's shelter and transitional house that I stayed at 16 years ago. But that story, it was because of that place. I believe God hid me there. I needed to have my chains released, and they made me go to therapy. You know us, we don't believe in going to sit down at with a therapist, but I needed it, and I still do it because I see how it helped Jessica become the woman that she is today. So I did group therapy. I did individual therapy. My son needed it because I didn't want my son to be okay with hitting another woman or mistreating another woman. But in there, people like yourself would come and donate different services and stuff. And so they would pick me. Like, "I want you to go through this business coaching. We see something in you." And that was the beginning of my transformation and my healing. So from there became an investment banker to a licensed branch manager, then regional, then district VP for the bank. And then entrepreneurship came along. But my story, I always tell people, I didn't just get here. it was because somebody came back and got me.
No more chains holding me.
Hey, one thing I know is that entrepreneurs need a team. You want to grow, you want to scale, you want to not overwhelm yourself and run yourself to the ground. You have to invest in at least an assistant at the very least. And 3C Concierge, they assist entrepreneurs with scaling their businesses and events by overseeing the administrative and project planning stuff, all that stuff that, you may not want to do, you don't have time to do, or don't know how to do. So you won't be so overwhelmed. They help you attract your ideal clients and they help you get the job done on time. So please contact c3concierge.com and book a free consultation so you can get the help you need to grow and scale your business.
No more chains holding me.
So, Dr. Jessica, I know you have the is it a nonprofit for battered women?
Yes, Dover's Place.
Yeah, so I love what you said about the signs of domestic abuse and how he was just like setting you up.
Yeah.
And you never know who's listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being that this Release the Chains it's a movement, it's really here to help evolve our people and have some sort of solution-based discussions, right? So what advice can you give anybody who may not even know they're in that situation yet, that they are being tested? Now you're being tested, right? But you didn't know before. So what are the signs?
See, and that's the thing, you don't want to become so skeptical of everybody.
That's true.
Well, if he hit you, you definitely know that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If he's cussing you out, that's a problem,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But you have to know when a person is having a bad day versus that's who they really are. You understand what I'm saying? But definitely counting your footsteps, wanting to know your every move, wanting to control your money, okay? We know that if you don't change your behavior, that's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Because sorry just won't do, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also, I just got a divorce,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to make it work based, and this is not to dog him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be very clear about that. But I should have left a long time ago.
Mm.
But I tried to love him through his addiction.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. To cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is, you can't help somebody who don't want to help themselves.
Facts.
You can't. You can love a person to death, and or to life. I don't like to say to death.
Yeah.
But they have to want it for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Most abusive men are narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what that is, it's somebody it's always you. It's always you.
Mm.
You made me do that.
Mm.
You made me act the fool. You made me punch you in your face or stick my 38 to your head. My daughter's dad used to always say that.
Mm-hmm.
But the only regret that I have with that is that I didn't leave sooner than that, because he ended up going to beat and murder another woman.
Wow.
So I have to that used to weigh me down.
Mm-hmm.
So I always said that when I got strong enough,
Mm-hmm.
girl, don't make me cry today,
Mm-hmm.
that I would create a place for women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that has to be. Can we give her some tissue, please, and some in the bathroom? I know that has to be kind of full circle, but because there's still tears, that shows that there's still some continual healing that you're processing. So what is that like for you? Let's take a moment and get you some tissue.
Because I always think about Jennifer. Her name was Jennifer. She was a school teacher, a special education teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They had just met, and he got high, and he brutally raped her, and he beat her to death. But I remember one time when he's now serving life in prison. But I remember one time I went to the police station because he had beat me up.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother's brother was murdered when I was like 6 years old. And they never knew who murdered him. They took his body, threw it in the river. Calumet River in Hammond, Indiana.
Wow.
But the thing that was so drastic, but they never knew who did it.
Mm.
And so I went to the police station and I said, I don't want to press charges. I just want to file a report.
Mm-hmm.
So that if he does kill me, listen to my thinking. So if he does kill me, at least my mother and them won't be like that for my mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what they went through probably 20 years prior to what I was going through.
Mm.
So, but my mom was so messed up because here I am still trying to protect him, but also trying to protect my family.
Yeah.
This little 23-year-old girl, 24-year-old girl was trying to protect an abuser / murderer, you know. But that always bothers me about Jennifer, because I mean, she probably would have been a principal of a school by now.
Yeah.
You think about all of that. And her mother said something at the trial. I read it in the paper. She said she came in this world fighting because she was born premature, and she left the world fighting. You know, so that always cheers me up, and I don't normally I try not to get teary eyed about it when I think about her, but Deborah's place is for her.
Yeah,
I dedicate it to her.
That's awesome. So what, I like I said, full circle, I can only imagine, you know.
I didn't mean to do that.
What that's like to be able to like give back in that way. Is there anything personally for you that you feel like, you know, I know you've been going through therapy, you've gone through therapy. Do you feel like there's any trauma that you haven't dealt with yet from your childhood?
You know what? I'm working through that now. I was saying that my son's father's murder was bigger to me. You know, we didn't go to the therapist. You just dealt with it, you know.
And that's what we were taught. And let's talk about that before we move on, right? Because I don't want to say it's just the Black culture that learns to sweep in. We can only talk about what we know, right?
Right.
But we are taught, a lot of families are to sweep things under the rug, deal with it, not say nothing,
and just on in this house, stay in this house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those things, which is trauma. So what can we, that's generational change, right? Yeah. What can we do now, today, even if we're starting today, what can we do now to release that generational change?
I just want to, you know, with my children, I mean, I have a grown son and I have a daughter she got accepted into an early college program. So
congratulations.
She's 15 in college.
Nice. That's good.
But I make sure that we thoroughly talk. And we also do therapy.
Yes.
Family therapy.
Yes.
And I'm not ashamed of that.
You should be.
Because I want them to be effective communicators. Because one day my daughter said something to me. It was like 3 years ago. She said, I want to make sure that I do more things with my kids than what you did with yours. And I said, what does that mean? We go on trips. She said, you only take me on your business trips. You never do anything just with me. And that, oh my gosh. I said, if I've ever not made you feel important, I'm sorry. Because that's not my intention.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we listen to our children, that we allow them to express themselves, regardless if we agree with it or not. Yeah. I said, well, I understand what you're saying. I think it's full of baloney, you know, but I still let them express themselves. Because I don't want you to go around thinking that you got to be mute in life and hold that in, then go into a post office and shoot everybody up or go to your job and kill everybody because you got all this suppressed anger.
Yeah. And I think about that in my childhood too, how I was afraid to go to my mom and talk to her about certain things, you know, about what was going on. And then what happened was I would just go out on the streets and just do things based on what the streets were telling me to do instead of getting that motherly love and the support and advice that I really needed. And so I'm the same way with my children. I'm trying my best to keep the lines of communication open and allowing you got to allow your kids to be able to talk to you about anything. Of course, they're not going to tell us everything. Like, we can't expect that. But we do have to set it in our own home and in our communities and be examples where our kids feel, they feel comfortable, and ask them, how comfortable do you feel? Talking to me about these things. I talked to my son about herpes. We didn't talk, and he's only 14, but we've been having these conversations since he was 12 because I want him to understand that things are normal, the way you're feeling. This is normal, because I always felt like as a child it wasn't normal, right? It wasn't normal to have these feelings.
That's so funny you said that. I remember when I found out my son, who's now a grown man, was sexually involved. And I said, when? Where? I take you to school. I pick you up. I take you to your track meets.
Right. When you have time to do it? When you have time to do
he
all
said,
this?
Ma, I skipped school. Girl, I was devastated for like 3 days in the bed. Wanted to call a prayer meeting, all that stuff. He like, Ma, it's not that I said, but you live lied to me. You told me you was a virgin. I was devastated.
Oh,
but hey, I'm glad he finally told me.
That's good.
But I could not believe it. I was like, when?
But our kids are human.
Like human.
And sex, it's not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not a bad thing.
I just wanted him to wait. I was like, I don't want you to be like me and have no baby when you're 17.
Yeah.
I said, because you don't got the same mama that I had.
Right.
Don't help you with the baby. What is it, mama, baby, daddy, maybe? Let me quit, yeah.
So, but let me ask you this final question about domestic violence, and then we'll move on to some other amazing things that you're doing. What did it teach you? That whole journey, what did it teach you?
To love Jessica first.
That's good.
I think that one of my biggest problems in that is that I didn't love me enough to walk away from that relationship. And I think that I was more caught up with, sometimes we don't want to leave because we don't want to be alone. So why don't you like Jessica?
Oh, that's good.
Why can't you be alone with Jessica?
That's good.
It was a major question for me. But when I started getting therapy and they started teaching us the honeymoon cycle and what to look for and why, you can see that it's a continual roller coaster, because some things are subtle. I'm not the type of person, like if you and I were best friends or are friends, you tell me, well, Jessica, I'm about to go to the store. I'll be back. And if you come back within, say for instance, 45 minutes, I'm not going to think anything of it. I'll think that you were in traffic, went to the store, got what you needed, came back, went through traffic. Or I'm not going to expect that you that you was prostituting. So I'm not checking. But it was things like that. You telling me you going to the store, but yet you going to be with a woman, come back home. And it would that's manipulation and lies, right?
Yeah.
So most of the time, and my mother said, you just so naive. I just was never taught to check in behind everything people said. But now you have to vet people.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about that earlier. Yeah.
You got to vet people.
Yeah.
Because people be... Girl,
you gotta ask them questions.
You gotta ask.
Ask them questions. Yeah, absolutely. So I know that you, speaking of business, right? I know that you have several different companies that you're running, and when we go on now, I was introduced to you online, just just great energy, attract great energy. You follow great women who are doing amazing things. You just liking and congratulations and clapping for them and all these things. And then you reached out to me, and we had an article. You put an article in Black Enterprise, and thank you kindly for that. And I was reading a post you just recently posted. I'm going to read it, and I want you to talk about it. You said, when I first started writing, I was told I lacked the proper writing skills that would grasp and keep the audience attention.
That's to make me cry. Ari.
And you said, keep going. I kept perfecting my craft. Fast forward today, my articles have hundreds of thousands of views. How does that make you feel?
You're going to have me cry all day. It humbles me.
Yeah.
It's very humbling because I know that I didn't do it. It wasn't anyone that couldn't. You know how many no's I got? How many major Brands told me no.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that they told me.
Wow.
And it's just amazing to see, just to have, I mean, they just put me in, it just has opened so many doors.
Now, do you think if they were putting you in because you didn't have experience, or what do you think
I
it
did not have
was?
the experience. I agree with what they said.
Mm-hmm.
I did lack it.
But I love that you didn't let it stop you, though.
Oh, no, you're not going to stop this.
And
Can't nothing stop a moving train, baby.
Oh, I've been talking about the quitting spirit because I work with entrepreneurs. I'm helping them, build brands and expand and get outside of their comfort zone, very similar to what you do. And a lot of times they'll have the momentum, and then next thing you know, they quit.
There's no glory in the quit.
Yes. And it's that we gotta really dig deep. Like, I talk about all the time during this podcast about the 7 steps to releasing the chains. And one of those is peeling back the layers, finding out what is going on in your story, in your past, in your trauma, in your history that is causing you to mentally keep quitting. What's going on, right? And that's not always easy to do.
A procrastination spirit.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. So I always like to tell people, don't quit. But then if you find yourself quitting, there is a process. There's some work that has to be done there. Did you have to do work, or you just naturally got it?
Of course, I had to do work, and that's another problem with this technology age that we live in.
Please tell it.
People believe that you see all these pretty graphics. Anybody can pay somebody to do a pretty graphic. You get the right angle, you can get the perfect shot. But you always can tell who's really doing the work because how long they stay around.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And a lot of people don't want to invest in themselves. They're not free working with Jessica.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But
absolutely.
In all seriousness, you want to make sure that's why I'm very intentional about what I listen to when I wake up, what I listen throughout the day to, what I listen to at night, who I surround myself with. Because if you hang around chickens, you're going to have a chicken mentality. I hang around eagles like what I'm doing this weekend. And I'm thinking, you know what? I can't have this. I can't have multiple locations. I can't start them all at the same time.
Absolutely.
I can do whatever I set my mind to. And with the quitting, I'm telling you, I've had some harsh words said to me when it came to journalism. But I kept going. And some of them people are out the game anyway.
Yeah, and see, that's how it usually is anyway. But we're not going to get into that. But I just love the power of tapping into yourself, because there had to be some belief in yourself. There had to be something in you.
If I survived the shelter, I could survive your harsh words.
Oh, and I feel the same way about that, because I've been homeless, $5 to my name. I've been literally. So it's like when you've been at the bottom, it's kind of like, for one, you never want to go back there. And I think that motivates a lot of us. Is that true for you too?
Absolutely. That I remember when I lived in the Julian Center, the cops were probably like this then, right? And so I know what it is. There was a place called Second Helpings. I don't even know if I think they still do exist in Indianapolis. But so that means by the time it got to us, it was Third Helpings, right? And so I never want to go back to that. I never want to go back to sleeping on the cot that little.
Yeah.
I never want to go back to, you're considered, you are homeless. I'm like, we live in this transitional house. She said, but you're still technically homeless. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
So once you've hit the rock, bottom, car bottom,
right.
You never want to go back there. So however long it takes me, if I got to fly to an Ari conference, if I got wherever, I want to invest in myself, and I want to be around people who believe that I can walk on water too.
Oh, that's good. Let's talk about that, right? Because when you're on this journey of releasing chains, where you're at the 7th step of evolving, right? And you're in this evolution, and you're changing, you're growing, you're expanding from within. Of course, it always starts within first. People start to drop off, right?
Absolutely.
And you start to attract different energy, and different people into your life. And I want to talk about how to go through that process. Now, but the process I want to talk about is when you have to let those people go, because for us, it may be easy, but there's a lot of people, it's really difficult for them to have to release people who are very close to them. Sometimes their spouse, their parents, sometimes.
I just had to do that.
Yeah.
I just had to do that. And it probably was the death of me.
It's difficult. It's difficult.
It's traumatizing.
And people don't talk about that part.
It was the death of me having to release that relationship. It was the death of me. Because if I love you, I love you. And it's nothing I won't do for you, you know? I also think that once you start loving you again, because something happened along the way.
There you go.
That you would say, that you would accept that toxicity in your life, right? But the higher you go, most of the time the trash gonna take out itself. Judas, you don't never have to hang. He gonna hang himself. I know it's a cliche, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Because every time you go higher, there's always anytime you get elevated, there's always a Judas. You can always expect a Judas at the table. What's the scripture say? Thou prepares the table. If you have enemies, that's an automatic indication that there's a table set.
I love that.
God has set a table for you. If you got enemies, if you don't got no enemies, you ain't got no table.
Yeah, you ain't doing enough. Work harder.
Yeah, but if you got enemies, that means a table has been set.
I love that. that.
And then you even notice like when an eagle picks a snake up off the ground, it doesn't have to tear its head off as it's flying. The higher it goes, it's going to suffocate and die. So that's what you do. Just keep going higher. They're going to suffocate it.
Yeah. But I get that, and I love what you said. But it's the part where so many people, that I work with, they're like, how do I deal with the loss? Right?
Go to therapy.
Loss, right?
Go to therapy. Get you some help. I'm not talking. See, a lot of times people talk stuff that they haven't lived.
I agree with you, but it's just not always easy for everybody, right?
Wait, Ari, that's not easy for me. That was not easy for me divorcing him.
Yeah.
That was not easy for me. And I'm telling you, you talking about somebody. I was talking about this earlier at a place that I was speaking at. I said that was causing me to lose money after the separation because I couldn't mentally focus. So if you go from 5 figures a month to 4 and you got staff, you like, wait a minute. You're going to have to either get yourself together or dissolve your business. And I've come too far.
I know that's right.
I've come too far. If I could make it through a shelter, I'm going to make it through this. Now, what the problem is, people have to realize that it's going to take time.
There you go.
So I'm not sitting here trying to make it seem like, oh, I just got it all together. I was able to let it go. No, in the process of time.
The process of time and process of healing through the loss. But the beauty in all of this is that I like to tell people is that when you release it, the abundance that you attract is now.
Don't start nothing. Now you have to start something with that one, baby.
Okay, now you have room for what's really meant for you, right? You're releasing it, and you just like you're pouring out this water. You release so you can add more, right?
I love that.
People don't get that part because we're always so stuck on the loss, the negative part, the struggle of it. But when you can envision and visualize, because I'm really big on visualization, and you can visualize the other side of it, which is the unknown, the uncomfortable part, because you really can't see it, you don't know it. But if you can visualize it and you focus on that loss of that person or that experience or that moment or that thing is nothing. You really ready to let it go then. When you can be like, well, hold on. There's going to be something real beautiful on the other side. And that's what I want people to understand. And I think that's a mentality that a lot of us have to have because we get so stuck in struggle and negativity and, woe is me and this whole victim mentality. But if you can look at it in the positive realm, then you're like, okay, bye. That's why I'm quick to be like, okay, bye. Oh, okay. Everybody can't go, and that's okay. And so my attitude about it is so different, but I understand that everybody's not like that.
I am a Christian, So this is one of my favorite things to tell people. Remember when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed and he said it 3 times, let this cup pass from me. When he got to the 3rd time and said that, because he knew he was about to face a death. We see a picture of Jesus on the cross and it just looks like he had a few stripes on him. But you have to understand, he was totally naked. He was brutalized. Part of his inside was hanging out. They plucked his hairs out of his face. They humiliated him. They put a crown of thorns on his head. But he knew he had to meet that death. Okay? But on the other side of the death, is what we celebrate Easter of his resurrection. And when he got up from the grave, he said, all power is now given unto me, both in heaven and in earth. What I love about that is that anytime you release something like you were alluding to, there is something glorious, that there's something else greater about to be put into your hands, better connections. See, some things God can't give you until certain people are out of your life.
There you go.
Because God is not a waster. He is not going to let you squander his goods.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something. When I got rid of that, the floodgates open.
And that's how it always happens.
The floodgates open.
And that's what I want people to know. That's what people need to know. That part. Because if they don't understand that part, you hold on to the mess. You never release that chain. So I'm so glad that you're sharing that and that story, that message to make it connect. So I talked about, right, the 7 steps that I have that I personally went through, right, to release the chain. So the first one is listening. The second one is peeling. The third step, and it's not really steps, they're all processes. You got to go through these processes. So the third process is detaching. The fourth process, I have them written down over here, that's why I'm looking, is forgiving. The next one is then trusting, and then healing and evolving. Where do you think you're at right now?
I am in between steps 4 and 7.
Okay.
And I want people to know that some people are healed instantly. And I think the instant ones are those who are ready to release immediately. Yeah. But those who are releasing slowly. Some people are healed instantly. Some people are healed as they go.
Yep. And they're all okay.
And they're all okay.
They're all okay.
I am constantly evolving. I am forgiving and I am trusting.
Yeah.
I'm in between all of those right there. And I'm okay with that because I'm learning. Jessica again. Yeah. And Jessica learning what she gonna accept and not gonna accept, and it's something. I do want to say this to women who are high achieving women, because sometimes people will come across like they're really for you, but the higher you go, they get intimidated.
Absolutely.
And you're like, what happened? You was my number 1 supporter. No, you was my number 1 hater on the low.
No more chains holding me.
She's a CEO is the ultimate family card game and also an educational business toolkit for seasoned and aspiring entrepreneurs. It's fun, it's challenging, it's educational. Get some knowledge and pay some homage. There are a few ways to play for the most enjoyment and benefit. Play your favorite card games: spades, gin, poker, bid whist, or whatever your family loves to play. Are you ready to be mentally challenged in a fun way? Play our signature BizWiz business development matchup card game. The objective is to collect the most customers correctly, based on matched business development statements we've created for you. Each week, research one of the noted entrepreneurs we've celebrated in the deck by pulling 1 or 2 random cards from the deck. Use the cards for daily, weekly, or occasional inspiration. Read their stories and learn more about the chains they've had to release to create long-term success and a legacy that will last forever. She's a CEO, a SheEO. Visit she'sasheo.biz to order your official business educational card deck today.
No more chains holding me.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, which is, in my opinion, very sad but it is the reality. And it's actually something that I don't want to feel like I'm bragging about my journey or myself, but if I'm being honest, you do sense this intimidation or this competitiveness amongst other people. And I think that that's something that people have to, like, if you sense some form of jealousy or intimidation from somebody else, you really got to do some work. You gotta do some work within yourself and figure out what is it about that person that's causing you to feel some kind of way about yourself. Because I noticed that a lot. I noticed that, it's like people become intimidated.
But here's the thing I don't like. You see this part of my story.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was eating second helpings,
right,
you didn't have nothing to say about that.
There you
when
go.
I was driving around with a busted up Toyota van, girl, that we taped it up, right? We taped
That's
up
so
the
true.
other side we put some nice plastic on there. And I rode with that car for almost 2 years. That van for 2 years.
Right.
But you didn't have
Right.
nothing. Oh, they referred to me. Oh, that's Jessica from the Julian Center. She lives in this shelter. But nobody had anything to say then. You didn't have anything to say.
Right.
But now that you deem me as a threat, as a competition,
right,
just because I'm wearing my hair slicked back with 6 ponytail holders that's different colors, don't mean this was always in me.
Right, yeah.
This was always in me. They don't want the part of your story where you were homeless, $5 to your name.
Right.
They don't want that. Mm-hmm. So you're going to get mad at me for my now, but you don't want that part. Right. So if you're going to take all of me, if you're going to come up against me, take all of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I love sharing, the process. And even when it comes to me studying, and I always tell people this all the time, when you're studying and you're being inspired by someone who is doing something amazing, don't look at the amazing stuff. Don't be inspired by the amazing stuff. Go back and read their bio. Go back and look at their social media posts from 5, 10, 20 years ago, and let that inspire you. That growth process, the trials, the tribulations, the failures, all the mess ups, that should be the inspiration.
The depression.
The depression.
Don't want to go home.
Yeah.
Listen, don't get me started.
Yeah, and I think that that's what people have to understand, because now with social media and the way things are and the way we're, our attention span is so short, we get into this microwave success mindset, And so I always like to remind people.
That's a start.
Yeah, I do. Even my son, I have to show him that, it takes time, and you're going to mess up, and you're going to learn from those failures. But I really think it's important that we talk about that. So the last thing I just wanted to talk to you about was, you just mentioned depression, right? And I don't want to end on a sad note, but I always like to ask people, what did you learn? Or better yet, what did you become as a result of the depression? But then mainly, what could someone learn from your story?
I became a worshiper. I got to know God in a different way.
Yeah.
Through that, everybody has what they believe in. Yeah. I'm not ashamed of what I believe.
Right.
I got to know God in a deeper way that I've never. See, because it comes a point where your grandma's testimony can't keep you.
Yeah.
And your mama's testimony. Now you're going to have your own testimony with God.
There you go.
To have somebody walk out on you, whatever the case may be. Betrayal is like death to me because I'm a loyal person.
Yeah.
But what I learned from it is that, I didn't used to like that saying, everybody can't go. I used to be like, girl, shut up. Until it became a reality.
Right. Because
truly, everybody, and that doesn't mean that it's over for them in your life, but just at this time, you're part of my story. You might come down another scene, another chapter of my life. Right. But as of for right now, that chapter is done, and having acceptance. It's like a grief process, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to accept what has happened, right?
Exactly.
So going through a divorce, then my father died all at the same time, who I had just really reconciled with. It was like double hits. My son was in a real bad car accident twice. Double hits.
So what can people learn? What can they learn
Back to
from?
that question. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
no, it's okay. But what can they learn from that?
That life happens. You're not exempt from stuff happening to you.
Yeah.
You can try to be the best person that you possibly can be.
Yeah.
But life is going to happen. I have a client right now. Her one of her sons went to prison for theft, and she just feels like she failed. She's like, how can I do all of this and this happened to me?
Yeah.
Guess what, girl? Life happens.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to stay stuck where you're at. It's all about, but see, my thing is you also have to be woman enough to admit. Like when you go to the hospital, right? One of the first rooms you go to is the admitting room. You have to tell them what's wrong with you.
Right.
So what is wrong with you, Ari? What is wrong with you, Jessica? I'm depressed. I'm sad. You depressed, girl? You ain't depressed. Yes, I am. Because if I don't call it what it is, I'm going to stay in it.
Yep.
You have to say what is wrong for somebody to be able to help you. I'm depressed. My husband left me. He chose drugs over this. He chose the street, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how could he do that? I had to talk that out, you know? And you don't think it. I'm telling you, I was watching TV one day and they were giving the signs of depression. I said, oh my God, I'm depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me pick. I got so many clients as therapists. Let me call. And I just praise God for that.
That's so wonderful. I love that. So the moral of the story is life is going to happen.
Yes.
You're going to go through several moments of having to release chains constantly. So, and this is releasing people. Some of those chains are people because people can hold you back. But a lot of times it's ourselves first. It's always about it's always about doing the work from the inside. So is there anything that I've been asking you a whole bunch of questions, right? Is there anything that you want to ask me before we end out the podcast?
Ari, I studied you, so I don't want to ask you anything. I just want to say this to you. I think you're a phenomenal woman.
Thank you, sis.
I am very excited to be here. I'm very proud to be in your presence, humbled to be in your presence.
Thanks, sis.
I love to see women winning.
Yeah.
And success looks good on you.
Well, thank you, sis. Congratulations to you as well, because I always say this: I'm from the hood, I'm from the streets, and I'll always be from the hood, and I'll always be from the street. But real recognize real. That's what we say in the streets, right? Yes. Real recognize real. So thank you so much for coming on and being authentic. I hope that all of you guys who are listening or watching on YouTube have gained something. You've taken some notes. You have something that you can, some actionable steps that you can go, and some signs you can look for when it is time for you to release those chains. So we'll see you guys next time.
No more chains holding me.